The boardroom smelled of coffee and ambition, the kind of place where dreams were pitched and deals were sealed. I sat at the head of the table, my laptop glowing with the final slides of our IPO pitch, the culmination of 5 years building Nexus AI from a garage in Redmond to a tech juggernaut in Seattle. My team leaned forward, eyes sharp, as I clicked to the revenue projections. Then my phone buzzed, a sharp vibration against the polished mahogany. I glanced down, expecting a quick note from my assistant. Instead, it was a text from my mother, Susan. "We've changed the locks. You're no longer welcome in this house." My breath caught, a cold fist squeezing my chest. The words burned into my retinas, each letter a betrayal carved in digital stone. I forced my face to stay neutral, my voice steady as I continued. "As you can see, our Q3 projections show a 40% growth, but my mind was fracturing. The house, my house, the Craftsman on Capitol Hill with its creaking oak floors and stained glass windows, wasn't just a building. It was my grandmother Lillian's legacy, the heart of our family for 4 generations, legally mine through her will. And now my own mother was locking me out? I wrapped the meeting early, my team oblivious to the earthquake rocking my world. In the elevator, I reread the text, my thumb hovering over the reply button. "Clever move, Mom, but I'm not scared," I typed, my fingers trembling with a mix of rage and bravado. It was a lie. I was terrified, not of the locks, but of what this meant. My parents, Susan and David, had always been controlling, but this was war. I drove straight to Capitol Hill, the Seattle skyline fading into a gray drizzle that matched my mood. The house loomed ahead, its gabled roof and wraparound porch a beacon of my childhood. I'd spent summers here with Lillian, baking sourdough in her ancient kitchen, listening to her stories of the house's history, how her great-grandfather built it in 1895, how it survived earthquakes and recessions. She'd left it to me, her letter with the will clear as day. "Emily, you see the stories this house holds. Keep it alive." My parents had been livid at the reading, Susan collapsing into sobs, David's face a mask of barely contained fury. They'd expected to sell it, to split the $2,500,000, 0 cents for their retirement dreams. I'd promised to keep it open for family, to honor Lillian's wish, but clearly that wasn't enough. I parked and grabbed my keys, the familiar weight of the brass one for the front door grounding me. But it didn't fit. I jiggled it, thinking the old lock was just sticky, but no. A shiny new deadbolt gleamed where the old one had been. My heart pounded as I circled the house, testing every door, back, side, even the basement, all locked. Then I saw them. 3 black garbage bags piled by the azaleas, rain soaking through the plastic. I tore one open. My clothes, my books, my grandmother's framed photo of us on the porch, all tossed out like trash. My stomach churned. I opened another bag, toiletries, a half-used bottle of my favorite shampoo, a cracked mirror. The third held my laptop charger, a few journals, but not the one thing I dreaded losing most, Lillian's leather-bound journal chronicling the house's history, or her diamond necklace, a family heirloom. Those were gone. I called my mother. No answer. My father, straight to voicemail. My brother Ethan picked up on the 3rd ring. "Em, what's going on?" His voice was cautious, like he already knew. "Did you know about this?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "Mom and Dad changed the locks. They've locked me out of my own house." A long pause. "Oh, Em, I'm sorry. I didn't know they'd actually do it. They're at the cabin in Whitby for the weekend. They're upset about the hub idea." "Upset enough to throw me out? To pack my life into garbage bags?" I was shouting now, rain dripping down my face. "This is my house, Ethan. Legally mine." I know, but they think you're turning it into some tech bro circus. Maybe stay with a friend for a few days, let them cool off. I hung up, my vision blurring with tears and rain. Ethan, my little brother, the one I'd bailed out of college debt, was choosing them. I sank onto the porch steps, the cold wood biting through my jeans. Headlights swept past, neighbors slowing to gawk. I felt exposed, like a criminal caught in the act of existing. My phone buzzed again, a notification from next door. My mother had posted, heartbroken that my daughter plans to turn our family's historic home into a commercial tech hub against our wishes. Some forget their roots. Comments poured in. Neighbors I'd known since childhood calling me selfish, a sellout. My own mother was weaponizing the community against me. I called Rachel, my best friend since MIT, barely holding it together. "They locked me out, Rach, my own parents. My stuff's in trash bags." "That's insane," she said, her voice sharp with outrage. "And illegal. You're staying with me. I'm coming now." While waiting, I guarded my bags, paranoid someone would take them, or worse, that my parents had told neighbors I was trespassing. Rachel's SUV pulled up and she helped me load the soggy bags. "This is war, Em," she said, slamming the trunk. "They can't do this. You need a lawyer, like yesterday." At her Belltown loft, I collapsed on her couch, the weight of betrayal crushing me. Rachel poured wine and sat across from me, her eyes fierce. "That house is worth $2,500,000, 0 cents. They're not just mad about Lillian's will, they're desperate for the money. Be careful. This feels personal." She was right. But it wasn't just personal. It was calculated. The missing necklace, the journal, the will. They hadn't been overlooked. They were leverage. My parents were playing a game I hadn't seen coming, and I was already 3 moves behind. The next morning, I woke to a pounding headache and a voicemail from my father. His voice was ice cold, a tone I'd never heard from the man who'd taught me to ride a bike. "You're making a mistake, Emily. Getting a lawyer involved will destroy this family. Drop this now or you'll regret it." I replayed it, each word a knife. Destroy the family. They'd already done that. I called Claire Nguyen, a property law shark with a reputation for dismantling opponents in court. Her office in Pioneer Square was sleek, all glass and steel, a stark contrast to the warmth of Lillian's house. She listened as I poured out the story, her pen tapping rhythmically. "This is self-help eviction," she said, leaning forward. "Illegal, even if they owned the house, which they don't. You have the deed, the will?" "I have copies," I said, my voice small. "The originals were in Lillian's jewelry box. They didn't pack it." Claire's eyes narrowed. "We'll get the official records from probate court. For now, we file an emergency injunction to restore your access. Document everything. Texts, voicemails, those garbage bags. And don't contact your parents directly. It goes through me now." I nodded, but the weight of suing my own parents felt like a boulder on my chest. As I left her office, my phone pinged. Another next-door post from Susan. "Our daughter's greed is tearing apart a century of family legacy." The comments were brutal. Neighbors I'd barbecued with now calling me a disgrace. My mother was painting me as the villain, and Seattle was buying it. That afternoon, I was inspecting the house's renovations remotely via a contractor's photos when I noticed something odd. The chandelier in the dining room, a heavy wrought iron piece from 1920, looked misaligned. I called the contractor. "Check it in person," I said. "Something's off." Hours later, he sent a video, the chandelier crashing to the floor, missing him by inches. "The bolts were loosened," he said, voice shaky. "This wasn't an accident. My blood ran cold. Sabotage. But by whom? My parents? A hired hand? The developer they were cozying up to? The stakes were rising, and not just at home. At Nexus AI, my office had been vandalized overnight. Sell the house was scrawled across my desk in red marker. Files shredded, my laptop smashed. The IPO, our make-or-break moment, was weeks away, and this was a direct hit. My CTO, Javier, was furious. "This is personal, Em. Someone's trying to tank us." I didn't tell him about the house. I couldn't afford to look weak. Driving to Rachel's that night, I took a steep hill in Queen Anne. The brakes felt soft, then nothing. My car lurched forward, careening toward a busy intersection. I yanked the emergency brake, tires screeching, stopping inches from a truck. My heart hammered as I called a tow. The mechanic's verdict was chilling. Brake lines were cut. Clean job. Someone wanted me dead, or scared enough to back down. I thought of my father's voicemail, the chandelier, the vandalism. This wasn't just about money anymore. Claire moved fast, filing the injunction and digging into my parents' financials. She found emails linking them to a developer, Cascade Properties, who'd offered $3 million, 0 cents, to raise the house for luxury condos. The deal had a deadline, end of the quarter, or they'd move to another property. No wonder they were desperate. But the sabotage, the brake lines, that felt bigger, like someone else was pulling strings. Rachel's loft was becoming a pressure cooker. Her boyfriend, Mike, was polite but tense, his sighs louder each day I stayed. "You can stay as long as you need," Rachel insisted, but I saw the strain in her eyes. My savings were draining. Legal fees replacing essentials, covering Rachel's utilities. At work, my lead investor called, voice tight. "Emily, I'm hearing rumors about family drama, legal trouble. Is this going to affect the IPO?" I reassured him, but the doubt in his tone lingered. My parents' smear campaign was bleeding into my career, and I was losing ground. Then came the police. Outside Claire's office, an officer approached. "Emily Carter, we need you to come to the station. Report of stolen property, jewelry, documents." My parents had filed a false report claiming I'd stolen Lillian's necklace and the will. The humiliation burned, especially when a tech reporter from GeekWire saw me being questioned. By evening, whispers of Carter's legal mess were circulating on X. I was spiraling when my phone rang, an unfamiliar number from Tacoma. "Emily, it's your Aunt Margaret, Lillian's sister. I have something you need to see." Her voice was steady, urgent. "Your grandmother left it with me for safekeeping. Your parents can't know." I drove to her cottage the next morning, the 2-hour trip a blur of nerves and hope. Margaret, in her 80s but sharp as ever, handed me a manila envelope. Inside, a USB drive, a handwritten letter from Lillian, and emails between my parents and Cascade Properties, dated 2 years before Lillian's death. The USB held a recording, Lillian's voice, calm but firm. "I'm of sound mind. I'm leaving my house to Emily because I trust her to protect it. My daughter and son-in-law have threatened to put me in a nursing home if I don't sell. This is my record against their lies." Tears streamed down my face. Margaret touched my hand. "She loved you, Emily. She knew they'd fight dirty." The email showed my parents plotting to sell the house long before Lillian's death, even trying to have her declared incompetent. It was worse than betrayal. It was premeditated. I handed the evidence to Claire, who grinned like a predator. "This changes everything. We're adding harassment and emotional distress to the suit. They're done." But that night, alone in Rachel's loft, I heard glass shatter downstairs. Footsteps echoed, heavy and deliberate. I grabbed my phone and hid in the closet. heart pounding as voices muttered about finding the drive. I slipped out a window, scraping my arm on the fire escape, and called 911 from the alley. The intruders were gone by the time police arrived, but the message was clear. Someone wanted that evidence destroyed. The hearing was days away, and the pressure was crushing me. My startup's $10 million 0-cents contract with a major client was wobbling. My team distracted by anonymous emails with doctored photos of me partying in Vegas, lies meant to ruin my credibility. Then, at the house, a gas leak forced an evacuation. The inspector's report was damning. A line had been tampered with. I could have been inside, asleep, when it ignited. My parents? The developer? Or someone else entirely? The questions gnawed at me, but I had no answers. Only a growing fire to fight back. The rain hadn't stopped. A relentless Seattle drizzle that clung to my skin as I stood outside the Craftsman, my house, staring at the new deadbolt mocking me from the front door. The garbage bags at my feet were soaked, my life reduced to soggy remnants in black plastic. My phone buzzed again, another notification from next door, Susan's latest post racking up likes and angry emojis. Emily Carter's turning our historic neighborhood into a tech circus. Shame on her for betraying her grandmother's legacy. The words stung, each comment from neighbors I'd known since I was a kid twisting the knife deeper. I wanted to scream, to march to Whidbey Island and confront my parents, but Claire's voice echoed in my head. Document everything. Don't contact them. So I didn't. Instead, I dragged the bags to Rachel's SUV, my hands shaking with a cocktail of rage and fear, and drove to her loft, the city lights blurring through my tears. Rachel's place was a sanctuary, but it was starting to feel like a cage. Her boyfriend, Mike, gave me a tight smile as I hauled my bags inside, his eyes saying what his mouth wouldn't. How long is this going to last? Rachel poured me a glass of Pinot Noir and sat me down. Em, this is bigger than a family spat. Your parents are playing dirty. That chandelier? The brake lines? Someone's trying to scare you. Or worse. I nodded, sipping the wine, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying the USB drive Margaret had given me. Lillian's voice, steady and resolute, accusing Susan and David of threatening her. The emails plotting with Cascade Properties. The evidence was a lifeline, but it also painted a target on my back. Whoever loosened that chandelier cut my brakes and broke into Rachel's loft last night wasn't just after the house. They wanted the evidence gone, and maybe me with it. The next morning, I woke to a pounding on Rachel's door. My heart leapt, expecting police or worse. But it was Javier, my CTO at Nexus AI. His face was grim, his laptop tucked under his arm. "We've got a problem, Em." He opened his screen to a chain of anonymous emails sent to our core team, each with grainy photos of me in a Vegas club, bottle in hand, surrounded by strangers. The caption read, "Is this who you trust to lead Nexus to an IPO?" My stomach dropped. "These are fake," I said, my voice hoarse. I haven't been to Vegas in years. Javier nodded, but his eyes were skeptical. "The board's freaking out. Our lead investor, Kessler, called me this morning. He's threatening to pull his $20 million 0 cents if we don't stabilize leadership." I felt the room spin. Nexus was my life's work, a tech startup revolutionizing AI-drilled healthcare diagnostics. The IPO was 6 weeks away, our shot at global impact. And now my parents' vendetta was bleeding into my company, threatening to burn it all down. "I'll handle Kessler," I said, forcing confidence I didn't feel. "But we need to trace those emails. Someone's orchestrating this." Javier agreed to get our cybersecurity team on it, but as he left, he paused. "Em, whatever's going on with your family, fix it fast. We can't afford this kind of noise. I called Claire, my voice shaking as I told her about the emails. This is defamation, she said, her tone sharp. We're adding it to the lawsuit. Harassment, emotional distress, and now this? Your parents are escalating, but that USB drive, it's our ace. She was preparing for the injunction hearing in 3 days, but the stakes were higher now. If Kessler pulled out, Nexus could collapse. If I lost the house, I'd lose Lillian's legacy. And if the sabotage continued, I might lose my life. That afternoon, I drove to a coffee shop in Fremont to meet a private investigator Claire recommended. The place was crowded, hipsters typing furiously on laptops, the air thick with espresso and indie music. I was halfway through my latte when a man slid into the booth across from me. He was built like a linebacker, his face half hidden under a baseball cap. Emily Carter. His voice was low, gravelly. I nodded, my pulse spiking. Drop the lawsuit, he said, leaning closer. Walk away from the house, or you won't walk away at all. Before I could respond, he was gone, melting into the crowd. My hands shook as I texted Claire. Just got threatened at Fremont Coffee. Big guy, cap, didn't give a name. Her reply was immediate. Get somewhere safe, now. I drove back to Rachel's, my eyes darting to the rearview mirror, half expecting a tale. The thug's words echoed, You won't walk away at all. Was he hired by my parents, Cascade Properties, or someone else entirely? The investigator, a grizzled ex-cop named Malone, met me at Rachel's that evening. Your parents are in deep with Cascade, he said, flipping through a file. They've been negotiating for 2 years, promising a clear title by Q4. The developers got deep pockets and deeper connections. That thug, probably one of their fixers. He handed me a photo of a man meeting David in a parking lot near Cascade's downtown office. The man's face was blurry, but the build matched the coffee shop thug. Be careful, Emily. These guys don't play nice. Sleep was impossible that night. Every creak in Rachel's loft made me jump, the memory of the break-in too fresh. I kept the USB drive in a hidden pocket of my jacket, its weight both a comfort and a burden. At 3 a.m., my phone lit up with another voicemail from David. You're digging your own grave, Emily. You think that recording changes anything? We'll bury you in court. His voice was slurred, angry, and for the first time I heard desperation. They knew about the USB. But how? Had Ethan told them, or was someone else feeding them information? The next day, I was back at Nexus, trying to salvage the Kessler deal. He agreed to a meeting, but his tone was icy. I invested in you because you're steady, Emily. This family drama, these rumors, it's a liability. I laid out our growth metrics, the AI's breakthroughs, but his eyes kept drifting to his phone, where I glimpsed a news alert. Seattle Tech CEO embroiled in family scandal. My mother's next-door posts had gone viral, picked up by local blogs. I left the meeting with a hollow promise to keep things under control. But Kessler's handshake was limp, his faith in me waning. Back at Rachel's, the tension was palpable. Mike was working late again, his absence a silent protest. Rachel tried to hide her frustration, but I saw it in the way she scrubbed dishes too hard, the way her smiles didn't reach her eyes. You're not a burden, she said when I brought it up, but Mike's adjusting, just focus on the hearing. I nodded, but guilt gnawed at me. I was overstaying my welcome, draining her life as much as my parents were draining mine. The hearing was a pressure cooker. Claire and I arrived at the King County Courthouse, my stomach a knot of nerves. Across the room, Susan sat rigid, her makeup flawless but her eyes red-rimmed. David glared at me, his jaw tight, while Ethan slouched behind them, avoiding my gaze. Claire presented the will, the deed, and Lillian's recording, her voice steady as she laid out the illegal lockout. Victor Hayes, their lawyer, was a shark in a tailored suit, his arguments slick but flimsy. Miss Carter abandoned the property, he claimed. Her plans for a commercial tech hub violate her grandmother's wishes. My clients were protecting the family legacy. The judge, a stern woman with gray hair and sharper eyes, wasn't buying it. The will is clear, Mr. Hayes. Miss Carter is the legal owner. Changing locks and removing her possessions was not a legal recourse. Susan let out a choked sob, and David's face darkened. The judge continued, I'm granting the emergency injunction. Miss Carter is to have immediate access. All belongings must be returned within 24 hours, or there will be consequences. Relief flooded me, but it was short-lived. As we left the courtroom, David leaned close, his breath hot with anger. This isn't over, Emily, not by a long shot. Outside, the nightmare escalated. A police officer approached, badge gleaming. Emily Carter, we need you at the station. You've been accused of stealing family heirlooms. My parents had doubled down, filing a false report about Lillian's necklace and documents. Claire stepped in, her voice like steel. My client is dealing with a court-ordered matter. These allegations are baseless and will be addressed later. But the damage was done. Tech reporters lingered nearby, snapping photos, their whispers already forming headlines. I felt exposed, my reputation unraveling in real time. Claire arranged a locksmith and police escort to reclaim the house that afternoon. The craftsman's familiar creak greeted me as I stepped inside, but the warmth was gone. The walls were bare, family portraits missing. Lillian's antique clock, her copper pots, even the dining room table, gone. The parlor, where I'd planned the tech art hub, was a hollow shell. Claire snapped photos, her face grim. This is contempt of court. We're filing a theft report. The officer nodded, but his discomfort was clear. You might want to check the gas lines, he said. We've had cases like this turn ugly. His words proved prophetic. That evening, as I unpacked what little I had left, a sharp chemical smell hit me. My head spun, and I stumbled outside, calling 911. The fire department arrived. Their verdict chilling. A gas line in the basement had been tampered with, a slow leak that could have turned the house into a fireball. I stood on the lawn, shivering in the drizzle as neighbors watched from their porches. Was this my parents' doing? Cascade Properties? The thug from the coffee shop? The questions swirled, each one a hook in my gut. I stayed at a hotel that night, too shaken to sleep in the house. My savings were hemorrhaging, legal fees, hotel costs, replacing essentials. Nexus was teetering, with Kessler's threat looming and my team rattled by the fake photos. Then came the final blow. A rival firm, Apex Dynamics, sent headhunting emails to my top engineers, offering double their salaries. Javier traced the timing to a call from an unknown number to Apex's CEO, placed from a burner phone in Seattle. Someone's feeding them intel, he said. This feels coordinated. I thought of Susan's posts, David's threats, the developer's deadline. Were my parents desperate enough to sabotage my company? Claire called with news. Your parents want to settle. They'll return everything, acknowledge your ownership, and avoid criminal charges. Her tone was skeptical. They're scared. That recording's a death blow. We met in her office 2 days later, a sterile conference room that felt like a battlefield. Susan and David looked diminished, their bravado gone. Victor Hayes spoke first. My clients are prepared to comply fully. In exchange, we ask Ms. Carter to drop additional claims. Claire didn't blink. She played Lillian's recording, Susan's voice threatening to institutionalize her mother filling the room. Susan gasped, tears streaming down her face. David's hands clenched into fists. We also have emails, Claire said. showing your clients conspired with Cascade Properties to sell the house before Lillian's death. Hayes asked for a recess, his face pale. When they returned, the fight was gone. They agreed to a public apology, $75,000, 0 cents in damages, my legal fees, and a restraining order, keeping them 100 yards from the house unless invited. Ethan approached me afterward, his eyes red. I'm sorry. I knew they were upset, but I didn't know about the recording, the developers. I was a coward. I wanted to forgive him, but the hurt was raw. You chose them, Ethan. I needed you, and you stood by. He nodded, tears falling. Can we try again? Coffee, maybe? I hesitated. I'll text you. The settlement felt like victory, but it was hollow. I moved back into the house, supervising the return of my belongings with Claire and a moving company. The necklace was there, but Lillian's journal was missing. Susan, allowed to attend under Claire's supervision, admitted, I burned it. I was angry. The loss hit like a punch, another piece of Lillian gone. I turned away, hiding my tears as Claire promised to pursue further damages. That night, I hosted a Taxgiving with Rachel and a few Nexus colleagues, filling the house with laughter and pizza. We saged every room, windows open, cleansing the betrayal's lingering weight. Rachel raised a glass. To Emily, who didn't just get her house back, she got her fire back. The cheers warmed me, but as I stood in Lillian's study later, staring at Maya Angelou's quote, "You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them," I felt the truth settle in. My parents had tried to break me, but they'd forged something stronger. The Tech Art Hub opened weeks later, its first exhibit blending AI visuals with local paintings, drawing a crowd that spilled onto the porch. Neighbors who'd egged my car now clapped, won over by the house's new life. Susan appeared, uninvited, her face a mask of forced calm. Lillian would have loved this, she said, her voice soft. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. I nodded, keeping my distance. Thanks for coming. Ethan brought a gift. A faded photo of Lillian on the porch, smiling. Found it at Mom and Dad's. It belongs here. I placed it on the mantel, a quiet reclaiming. Nexus stabilized, a new investor stepping in after Kessler's hesitation. The $10 0 cents M contract was secured, my team loyal despite Apex poaching attempt. But questions lingered, sharp and unanswered. Who was the thug? Was Cascade behind the sabotage? Or was it my parents alone? What else had Lillian hidden, and who else knew? As I locked up the gallery that night, the house's familiar creaks felt like whispers of resilience. It won the battle, but the war wasn't over. Not yet.